DC. This is Friday, September 15th, and we are coming to you live from the studios at the Rock Health and Wellness Center in Lubbock, Texas, the mecca of health and wellness. We are so excited to be here tonight, and that is what we're trying to make that. We're trying to make this place the mecca of health and wellness. We're trying to make it a place where you don't have to go to Dallas or Houston or San Antonio to get the best care on the planet. And so that's what we're doing here tonight on this beautiful Friday night. I know that there's places a lot of people are tonight, and good for them. They're out at ball games. I grew up in a football family, so I know it's a little bit sacrilegious to do a live radio show on a Friday night, 6 o'clock. We're getting ready to kick off, but there may be some people that are here that are not at a football game tonight, and we're going to have a good time right here on the radio and on the Facebook Live and on YouTube. We are coming to you live from 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio, 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation, 987radio.com, and the Live 365 app anywhere in the world. And so if you want to listen to us on Friday night, or you've got a friend that wants to listen to us on Friday night, we'd love to have you. We'd love to listen to you. And then maybe the rest of you are catching us on our Facebook page, the Rock Health and Wellness Centers, or on our YouTube channel at Health from the Rock, or you could catch us at Dr. Jason Clemmons on X, formerly known as Twitter. So I know a lot of you guys will find us. You did last week. You found us over the weekend and watched the show. So thank you for getting out there and being social on a Friday night if you're missing this tonight. And we really appreciate that, because that is the number one thing you could do for your brain. And so we're glad that you're out enjoying your Friday night. I want to say a shout out to two special people in our lives who are patients who are in delivery right now as we speak. We've been carrying this child around now for almost 9 months, and it's time to go. So I'm not going to name any names, but they know who they are, and we're super glad that they've made it this far, and they've done a great job. And so just hang in there. It'll be over soon, and then we'll have us another little one in Lubbock, and it'll be great. So shout out to them. Thanks for a great week. We've had a fantastic week on this show. We've broken down some of the things that we do here at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and we're going to continue to break down some of those things tonight. We've had a special guest in from Ruidoso, New Mexico. Dr. Joe Fraley came and visited with us. That was a great night on Tuesday. We broke down the book, The Body Keeps the Score, and we got lots and lots of feedback about that. Got a lot of people talking to us about that and really saying thanks for breaking that book down. And so we're going to just keep that going. Every Wednesday, we're going to have a different book, and we're just going to keep breaking those books down as we go. And those are books that I have read, and I hope to share the information that are in those books. You know, I don't have my own lab. I don't do the research myself. I've got clinical experience from 19 years in chiropractic, but I don't have the research that some of these books are founded on. And a lot of the guys are reading the research anyway, but I just think it's really cool to have the opportunity to share the information that I have learned. And there's a whole bunch of books. I'm sure we'll have a year full of Wednesday nights that we can break down some books without having to get into new ones yet. So there's lots and lots of information out there that I think is fabulous. And you guys, I know you're busy. I know you got things to do. You're trying to raise a family, trying to take care of kids or grandkids or spouses, or just trying to get yourself through life. And you have different interests. Maybe some of you guys like real estate, or maybe some guys like cars or hunting or whatever it might be, romantic novels. I don't read any of that stuff. What I read about is the nervous system and how to make things better for you and how to make things better in our office. So maybe my likes that I read on and the books that I like to watch read and watch the YouTube channels about and all that sort of thing, maybe I could just share that with you, and you can get some more information about your health, because that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to give you the best place. We're trying to create the Rock Health and Wellness Center to be the center of health and wellness on the planet. That's really what we're working on. And we're going to try to make it as good as you can get anywhere on the planet. You don't need to have to go to Dallas You don't have to go to San Antonio. Matter of fact, you can go halfway. I learned this one time. You can go halfway from Lubbock in one direction, and then you'll go halfway around the world. And you can go halfway from Lubbock in the other direction, and you'll also go the halfway around the world. You'll meet yourself on the other side of the world. Right starting point is right here in Lubbock, Texas. So I heard Zig Ziglar break that down one night. I thought it was awesome. He wasn't talking about Lubbock. He was talking about someplace in Arkansas, if I remember right. But he was talking about that, and he was, the point of it was, you can be your absolute best right where you are. And I hear a lot of people say a lot of times, man, I just got to get out of town. We just got to go to Denver for the weekend or something, or we just got to get out of Lubbock for a bit because it's, oh man, we just need a break. And it just makes me laugh because I always think to myself, no matter where you go, that's where you are. And so maybe if the grass isn't, if the grass is greener on the other side, maybe you need to fertilize, right? And I've been really fortunate to be around a lot of people in my lifetime that kind of taught me that. So that's what we're trying to do right here, is we're trying to make this place the best place that it can possibly be. And so all these shows that we're doing, coming to you live on a Friday night. If you're not listening to us now, you'll catch us over the weekend. I know you'll catch us sometime, and maybe it'll be worth your while, and maybe you'll understand, hey, if there's something bothering you and you want to come visit with me and you want me to go through with what we do here in the office, and that's what I'm going to kind of share with you tonight, is some of the things that we do here at the Rock. Because I had a new patient today that was an old patient that had been a part of our practice years ago, even when I had started, and we sat down, and she just wanted to have a different opinion. She goes to see a chiropractor here in town. The guy's a great guy. He's got a great clinic, and no bad things to say about any of the other chiropractors in town. We got some good guys here in this town. They're fabulous chiropractors. We all just kind of do things a little bit differently. And so she came and visited with me. We sat down, we ran her through some of the things that we do here at the office, and she found out some things about herself that she didn't know. And she found out some things about her brain that she didn't know. And it kind of made her interested in what we're doing here. So I thought I would take this evening and visit with you guys about what we do here at the Rock, because chiropractic is so misunderstood. There's anytime you tell somebody you're a chiropractor, they immediately reach for their back. That's the first thing that happens, is they just reach back like they're in some sort of pain. Yeah, I went to a chiropractor one time. He told me one leg was longer than the other one. It's like the stereotypical thing that I hear, and it's kind of a funny thing to me, because I'm just like, that is not what we're about at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. So if you're listening to us on 98.7, you're catching us on the radio, or you're watching us on the Facebook or YouTube, Facebook or YouTube, or any of the social media, or you're catching us later on this weekend, and you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if I could make my health better. I wonder if I could make the health of my family better. I wonder if Dr. Clemmons would have anything for me to help me be better. Then if you answer yes to any of those questions, then give us a call. Our text line, 806-794-0400. You can send us a text anytime. You can call the office, and that's the same number. Our office phone is a cell phone. So you can call the office and talk to us. I'll be glad to talk to you. I'll be glad to sit down with you and talk to you about what we do. And so maybe we can help you or your family live a better life. And that's what we're all about. So let's get into some of that stuff, because it's not really known. And I talk about this probably the third or fourth time that you've seen this word from me, and you've heard this word from me, called subluxation. And subluxation means interference in your nervous system. And when you have interference in your nervous system, then your body doesn't function properly. It gets frustrated. And when it gets frustrated, just like if you've ever tried to do something that you don't know how to do, or you didn't get the right information, or someone told you something wrong, or you didn't get sometimes we get deliveries in the mail, or we're trying to put together a desk. Or I remember when the kids were little, on Christmas, we'd buy them something and we have to put it all together. And Sometimes you open up a manual that gives you the exact perfect directions on how you're supposed to put that together. And boy, you just feel so good about yourself. You start putting it together and all the pieces are right there and all the little nuts and bolts are all packaged up perfectly. And there's a 1, 2, 3 step process. And you're just like, man, this was easy. And then sometimes you open those things up and it seems like you got to have a 3 doctorate degrees or something in order to figure out how to put that desk together. And you can't figure out where all the pieces go. And almost every time that's happened to me, it's been very frustrating. It's like, dang, who wrote these directions, right? Well, inside our body, that's kind of the way when our body's trying to talk to our brain and our brain is trying to talk to our body, then and there's some sort of interference. It's very frustrating, and it takes up a lot of energy, and it's hard to run the body when the body's not working very efficiently. I'm not gonna name any names, but there's 2 different fast food chains in our town, and they're right in the same parking lot, and one of them can handle about 17 cars every 10 minutes through the drive-through, and they greet you with a smile, and they can handle it, and their people just love going there. It's busy all the time, and the other one really struggles trying to get someone through. You might have 4 cars in the drive-through, and they'll still be there 20 minutes later, and then about 10% of the time, 15% of the time, the order's not right. And so I always try to tell the our staff here at the Rock, let's see if we can be like the good one and maybe not like the bad one, right? But that's kind of how our bodies work. Our bodies are a little bit the same way. When we have interference in our bodies, they don't work well, and it's very frustrating. And they'll start to create things like stiffness or pain or lack of concentration, that type of thing, right? It kind of starts to break us down. It starts to make us age faster. And that's not what we're looking for. We don't want to get old quick. I've got patients that come in and they're 60 years old and they say, man, I'm old. And I've got one lady, she's 84 years old and she goes to the gym 4 days a week. She is bragging about how she is working out. She did body pump and bar last week. That's pretty much what she does before she comes over and gets adjusted. And all the girls over there at the gym are talking to her about how amazing that is. And to her, it's just like, I'm just living life. I'm just going working out and coming and getting adjusted and she's just rocking it. So she's been getting adjusted for a long time. And she's been doing a lot of things like diet and exercise that help you stay well over a long period of time. So that's kind of but your body when it's subluxated doesn't work very well, and when your body is not subluxated, it works really well, and it'll last for a really, really long time. I was wanting to I was watching Jack LaLanne. All you old timers will know who Jack LaLanne is. I was looking at Jack LaLanne this morning on his 70th birthday. He pulled 70 boats with 70 people in them through this lake somewhere, like through some choppy waters, it said. And so I was like, wow, Jack Lane was pulling boats with his teeth, or I don't know, he had this harness or something. He was doing the butterfly stroke in this lake, and he had all these chain of boats behind him, and he was pulling them all at 70 years old. So if you keep yourself in good shape, you'll probably last for a long time. So that's the foundation of what we do in our office. Which we're looking for interference in your nervous system, and that's where we can get really complicated. Well, like we can get deep down into things and really start to study some things to find that interference in your nervous system. And that's kind of where we start. And your nervous system is just it's amazing. I mean, it really is amazing. And we were talking about it today. I've got an electrician that I take care of. He's an awesome dude. He and his wife are fantastic patients in our office, and I feel like we're just colleagues in wellness, really, because they do a lot of stuff to try to help people be well. And we were talking about. I was trying to break it down. It's like I said, hey, break it down for me. What volts and amps and ohms and all that sort of thing are, because I get it mixed up sometimes in my language, and I try to make it to where it's understood. Interference in your nervous system is like what I found out today is called ohms, and ohms are resistance in an electrical circuit. So the way you slow down, the amps, the way you slow down electricity is through resistance, right? And that's the same thing in the nervous system. It's through resistance that happens. And it's not so much that it's pulling in an electrical circuit, it pulls instead of pushes. But in the nervous system, it kind of travels through the nerve. Then electrical impulse travels through the nerve. And when it hits the brain, it's the most beautiful, amazing symphony of explosion. Like that last night in West Texas, we had just an amazing lightning storm. It lasted for an hour or longer. I don't know. It was unbelievable the amount of lightning strikes that hit last night, and it was just like all over the sky. The sky was just constantly just one after the other, just lighting up with all that lightning. And every single movement and every single thought and every single breath you take in your body, your brain receives 3 trillion bits of information per second. 3 trillion bits of information per second. And when it receives that information through your spinal cord or through your eyes or through your hearing or your senses, when that information comes into your brain, it's an amazing symphony. It's not a muscle. Your brain's not a muscle. People say, "Well, you got to work it like a muscle." No, don't do it. Don't work it like a muscle. You can work your biceps all day long, and when your biceps get really, really, really fatigued, they'll just quit and they'll get sore, and then you'll be sore for a couple of days. You won't even be able to comb your hair or brush your teeth because your biceps will be tired. That's not the way you treat your brain. You treat your brain like a delicate, amazing system that it is. And these little neurons that run through your brain, they are just lighting up there. And there's so much that's going on inside your head. It's just it keeps me in awe on a regular basis because I get to come to work every single day and work on the most amazing system in the universe. And so the nervous system is really, really amazing. And so what we're doing is trying to find that interference in the nervous system. And we've talked about it lots of times, and we talked about the up and to the right and over to the left, right? And I wanna just kinda say what that means to me right there because up and to the right and over to the left took 23 years of study to kinda understand. And when I break it down that way, I'm not breaking down a specific pathway. I'm not saying that all of the pathways in your brain go up and to the right and over to the left. That's not what I'm saying. It's a big picture standpoint. It's not a detail-oriented left brain standpoint. So, we're looking for that pattern, and that's why I was talking to that electrician about. I was talking to him about is it voltage? Is it amps? What is it that travels through our nervous system that would kick it over to the other side? Sometimes you gotta have enough power, not sometimes, all the time, you gotta have enough power that comes up and kicks it over to that other side. And, on Wednesday night when we broke down the book, The Body Keeps the Score, then we broke it down really clear, or I don't know. I don't know if we broke it down clearly or not, but we did break it down and kind of describe what happens when the information comes into the middle of the brain, how it gets sent to the different parts of the brain, and then the different parts of the brain fire it to, over to the left. That's what we're trying to get to, right? And how that upper brain, if that's working like it's supposed to, then your upper rational brain is dampening your lower emotional brain. And you don't want to be in a lower emotional brain state, right? The lower emotional brain is that's children. I've got a really cool thing going on right now. I've got a young girl that works at a daycare or a school. I'm not gonna give away where, but she works at a place where she gets to take care of little kids, and she's got this 3 or 4-year-old little kid that is a mess. He is having a really, really hard time, and he's biting, and he's pulling hair, and he's out of control and all that sort of thing. And so every day when she comes in, or, she comes in multiple times a week, when she comes in to see me, we are talking about the right brain and the left brain and the upper brain and the lower brain on what she can do to help him. And it's really, really cool. She was telling me today that She was sitting in the floor, crisscross applesauce is what she said. We used to call it Indian style. That's probably not even acceptable anymore. But she was sitting in the floor and she was like having to hold him, and then she was rocking him. She was having to rock him back and forth and back and forth. And then she was having to pat him and rock him back and forth. And then finally he calmed down. And I was like, yes, that is a bottom up approach, right? That's what he's missing. That's what he missed from the very beginning. That's why he's acting that way. That's that's the reason he can't behave properly is because somewhere along the way from the very beginning of his life, those mirror neurons that we talked about on Wednesday night, they're not firing properly and they're not allowing him to function the way he's supposed to. And so if you can take him back down to that emotional brain and then reset those pathways for him, you got to rebuild them back up. Is it going to work? I don't know. But what I do know is it's his best option. I don't know what his outcome is going to be. Right now it looks pretty bleak. He's really having a hard time. But what I do know is that if I had to do the one thing, if I could get her to do the one thing or the parents to do the one thing that would be best for that child, that's it right there. Take him back down, take him back down as if he was 6 weeks old. What would you do to a 6-week-old in order to get him to calm down? You would take them right back down to that level. You would rock them, you would pat them, you would hum to them, right? You'd sing them a little lullaby song, right? You get some rhythm going on, you get some touch going on, and then you'd bring them back down and they would calm down usually. And that's an approach to get the nervous system to fire the way that it's supposed to fire so that the human being that's dealing with that nervous system has the most optimal chance to be the best they can be, right? And that's what this whole up and to the right and over to the left is. It's not a if I could get in, I'm sure there's some I could get into it with some of my chiropractic friends and they'd just be like, Jason, that's not how it works. Yeah, that's not how that's dang well that the pathways don't fire like that over and over. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but back up and look at the big picture. And that how do we process new information? We process it on the right side. What happens? We get it over to that left side. That upper brain dampens that lower brain, and we are rocking pretty dang good right there. And so, what I do in the office when a patient comes to me, and like that patient that we talked to today, what I do in the office is I spend the process of an evaluation of a patient. I spend that evaluation just looking for that thing. That's it's like, look, that's how we win the game right there. That's the play we need to run to win the game. So what I want to know is where do you have interference in that pathway? Where do you have interference? And where is it coming from? Right? Right. We tried a little bit last night to talk about eat well, move well, and think well, that like Dr. James Chestnut talks about, right? So the nutrition, movement, Joe on Dr. Fraley on Tuesday called it fuel and fuel delivery and activation, right? Those are the things that I'm looking for is where do you have interference in your nervous system? Where is it coming from? And what could I possibly do to test that to see if I can figure out where you have that interference in your nervous system? So when you come into the office, you fill out your paperwork. And then when we take it, we just, before I ask you a single question about what's wrong with you, because I really don't care what's wrong with you. I'm looking for what's right within you. That I got that story when I was in chiropractic school, and it made tears come to my eyes. This young medical student had wrecked his motorcycle, and someone told him he should go to a chiropractor, and he had like road rash and all that stuff. And he went to this old chiropractor, and this old guy listened to him talk. And the medical school's student, he was trying to impress this old chiropractor and tell him all the things that he knew about health. And he just rambled on about all the things that was wrong with him. And the old chiropractor just sat there for a minute and he just kept taking notes and kept taking notes. And then finally he said, I just want you to know I'm more interested in what's right within you than what's wrong with you. And man, when I heard that story when I was in chiropractic school, just tears came to my eyes because I was like, man, that is truth. Like that's what we're trying to get to. That's that innate intelligence that we were talking about right there at the very first show. And so that's what we're looking for in the office. And we're going to take just a little break right here, or we're coming up on a break. And I don't want to go too far without our listeners on the radio. And so I really appreciate you guys listening on the radio. I really appreciate the whole team over there at 98.7, Ken and Victor and the whole bunch, and Bob keeping this thing going. So I really appreciate them having us on and letting us participate in their station and try to make Lubbock a better place. So we're going to take this break. If you got any questions and you want to talk to us, you can send us a text 794-0400 or send us a message on Facebook Live or YouTube, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Yeah, so you guys that are on Facebook Live and YouTube and X, so yeah, that story was it was really an amazing story to me because I knew when that old guy he'd been listening for a long time. He'd been talking to people for a long time, and he'd heard lots of stories about all the things that were wrong with them, you know, and it was kind of like it wasn't his thing. His thing was to try to figure out, hey, what's right within you? What is that innate intelligence that you have that makes you tick? And how do we get to that? How do we get the best out of you? What is the environment that we can put you in that gets the best out of you? And it's just a paradigm shift on the way that you look at people and the way that you take care of people. It's a totally different a pathway. It's like, look, I'm not looking for what's wrong with you. I know you're used to it when you go to the doctor of telling the doctor what's wrong with you. I want to know your symptoms, of course, but that's not where we start. We don't start in our office. We don't start the symptoms or the whole process with the symptoms. We start the whole process with trying to figure out, hey, what where is your environment interfering with your perfection? And that I don't know if I heard somebody say this or if I actually made this up myself. It might be one of the more authentic things I've ever said, or I could have read it and just forgot about it. But your flesh, your flesh is the canvas that your spirit paints the picture of you, on which on which your spirit paints the picture of you. And so that's really what your flesh is. Your flesh is how your spirit is able to function. It's how we can see you. And and so that flesh is what we're getting. Like your spirit is perfect. The flesh is interfering with it. And that's what's got us all trapped. What keeps us trapped is the interference in the perfection that's already there, right? You go to a Western medical model person, you go to an allopathically trained doctor, and a lot of times what they're looking for is they're looking for what's wrong with you, right? Tell me what's wrong with you, or I need to find out what's wrong with you, and then I can fix it. It's funny to me. I'm like, really? That person's got 70 trillion cells. You're going to fix that? They're receiving 3 trillion bits of information per second into their brain, and we're going to fix that. Like, I'm not exactly sure that's exactly how that works, but what really what we when you come into our office, what I'm looking for is where are you getting interfered with, and then let's address that. Let's go to work on where you're getting interfered with, and then maybe we could just remove that interference, and your perfection can express itself. It's just a totally different idea. All right, everybody, we're back from the break. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. This is Friday, September 15th. We're coming to you live from the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and we are talking about how we break down things here in the Rock and the things that we do to evaluate when a person comes into our office, if how that person is functioning and where they have interference in their nervous system. And that's really my goal. My goal is to find out where do you have interference in your nervous system, and then remove that interference, and then let your spirit express itself through your flesh, so that you can live the most optimal life possible. And when we go about doing that, we start off with a few things. Trying to get this radio right. Yeah. So we start off with heart rate and oxygen saturation. Just the very first thing, you just come in, you sit down in the chair. I want to know what your heart is doing. Is your heart beating properly? Is it beating too fast? Is it beating too slow? When you stand up, does it respond the way it's supposed to respond? Because if it doesn't, it's kind of telling me, hey, there may be some interference in your nervous system there. I want to make sure that your oxygen is proper. I want to make sure that your oxygen is proper, so that you can handle, that delicate system we call the nervous system, and that beautiful symphony in your brain that goes off every single second and every single microsecond. That needs oxygen. It needs fuel, and it needs oxygen. And so if a person comes in and their oxygen level's low, that's telling me that we need to back up just a little bit. We don't need to hit that. We don't need to hit that. We don't need to send too many volts or amps or whatever it is that goes into the brain. We don't need too much electricity into that system, because that system is pretty delicate right there. And then we look at grip strength, and I'll break that down here in just a second. Then we look at X-rays. We do a physical exam. We do some tests. If it looks like you might have a disc problem with it, we'll do some orthopedic tests for that. If you've got a shoulder problem, we'll do some orthopedic tests for that. We'll do some brain tests to see how your brain is firing right side and left side. We'll kind of walk you through some of that stuff. We'll take some pictures, what we call a posture picture, and we've got a screening technology that will break it down for us to kind of give us how your posture looks, because your posture is a reflection of your nervous system, right? It's kind of the window into your nervous system, so that we can look at it. We can see exactly how your posture, if you're not standing properly, if your head is tilting in one direction, if your shoulders are off, if your hands are rotated one way or the other, those are things that we look at to try to say, hey, maybe the nervous system is not functioning quite like it's supposed to. And then we've got the right eye and the reflex. And those are things that we do, that we try to find out exactly what your brain is doing and how it's doing. So those are those things. And so it's one of the things that we do is grip strength. And there's lots of statistics. If you take little kids from the 80s and 90s and you take little kids from today, they're losing grip strength. And grip strength is a real good indicator of brain strength. There's a little man, you could look it up, you could Google it. It's called the homunculus. Be careful, because it's a naked little man that is built, so you'll see all the parts. But if you the homunculus, it represents the amount of nerves, the number of neurons in the motor cortex and the sensory cortex of your brain that are dedicated to the parts of your body, right? And so we may have covered this before, but the homunculus has big giant hands and big lips and big around the face, but it has real skinny arms and real skinny legs, right? So it's got these big hands, and these big hands, what they tell us is that your brain allocates a large number of neurons to your hands. So one of the ways that we can test in our office how your nervous system is functioning is just by doing grip strength. So, and that's what we'll do right there. We'll check your pulse, check your oxygen, and we'll check your grip strength. That's the first thing that we do. And then we'll get into the posture pictures and some of the other things. We'll get into the X-rays, because we want to know exactly how your body's functioning. And I'll show you some of those here in a minute on the Facebook. And then we're going to take you across, and we're going to run the right eye test. And we went over that on Monday on the show. And the right eye test, if you follow something like you're watching a bird fly across the sky, if you watch a bird fly across the sky, That's the parietal lobe of your brain. That's the upper part of your brain in the back that is controlling your eyes, that is making your eyes move through a smooth, nice, easy, smooth motion. And when we run the right eye test, we can see whether or not your eyes are moving through a nice, smooth motion. And then if you look at something quickly, go from one to the other, back and forth. You look at something that's right in front of you, then look over to the side. Then look at something that's right in front of you, and then look over to the side. And that's the frontal lobe that's firing, and that's making that particular thing function. And then when you look right at something, if you're going to just stare right at one thing, just find something in your room or your environment right now and just point right to it. And if you just point right to it, it'll tell you exactly where that one thing that you're looking at, that's kind of your brain stem right there. So we're going to look at that, and we're going to see how's your brain functioning. And you'll get different readouts when you do that with people. When you look at it and you scan those people, then what you do is you scan them and you say, hey, their fixations, which is the ability to just look at one thing, those are working great. Or maybe they're not working so great. Maybe they're not able to look at one thing. Maybe one eye looks right at something and another eye looks off into some other way, right? And so when you scan somebody, you can kind of see what they look like. And we've done hundreds of scans, and what we find out is that people's brains work differently. Like the way that you can fixate on something, and then what almost always happens is as you move up into the brain, remember that rational brain is that upper brain and that emotional brain is that lower brain. If once you move up into that upper level brain and you start to look at how those things fire, you start to see that they can't do it right. Like their frontal lobes are not firing exactly like they're supposed to. And remember, your frontal lobes have a lot to do with your whole environment, body function, whether or not you're getting along with people, whether or not you can sit up straight and have good posture, or whether you're really tight in flexion, your head's down, your shoulders are in, all that type of thing, right? So that's those saccades that's in the where you are moving your eyes quickly from one place to another. And so that's a way that we would look at that, and we would measure that to kind of see that. If you think about how important your eyes are, 40% of all nerve fibers to your brain come from your retina. That's a really amazing stat right there. 40% of all nerve fibers to your brain comes from your retina, comes from your eyes. So your eyes are providing a ton of information to your brain, and then your brain is taking all that information and sending it to different parts. Like it'll come in, it'll move through different parts of your brain, it'll get scattered into your cerebellum for balance. It'll get scattered to your vestibular system so you can have balance. Your ears will hear things and they'll tie in to that whole system. It'll send it to the back of your brain called your occipital lobe, and that back of your brain will then send it to different parts of your brain. Your eyes are just super amazing. 2/3 of all electrical activity in the brain is devoted to vision when the eyes are open. So your eyes you're just getting a lot of information from your eyes. And so when we test them, we can see what the brain is doing, not what the vision is doing. I'm not an eye doctor. I'm not testing the vision for someone. I'm simply just looking at it and saying, hey, can we look at it and can we see how your body is doing by looking at through your eyes? And then we'll get over and we'll do some x-rays. And when you start studying the structure of something, then you study the function. I got a picture sent to me today of one of our friends who's building a new house, and that storm that came through, like they're in the framing stage of the house, and that storm that came through last night wiped their house out. Like it just blew the whole thing down. All the framers are gonna have to start over. And we saw that picture today, and it's like the structure wasn't able to withstand the force that was being put on it, right? So structure and function kind of go hand in hand a lot of times. Structure and function are super important to each other. And it's like if you walked outside and you saw that your car had a flat tire, if you would you you knew that you would know immediately that your car is not going to function the way it's supposed to. And a lot of times, if you push that function, if you try to drive your car on a flat tire, you end up ruining your rim, right? So you could tear your car up if your tire's flat, then you could tear your car up and that would be bad. Well, same thing happens when you look at someone's structure. If they're supposed to have a normal curve in their neck and that curve is completely reversed backwards, then I know a couple things. I know that their nervous system is not functioning properly. I know that for a fact. There's science that back that up, right? I also know that they're increasing their chances of injury in the future. They're increasing, especially in your neck. There's so much that your neck has to do with the rest of your body, and where your head is placed. And if your curve is reversed, it's changing the way that your head is placed. It's changing the dynamics inside that structure. It's changing the low back. For every 25 millimeters of forward head posture, you put an extra 10 pounds of pressure on your low back. That can cause disc problems. That can cause ligament problems. It can cause muscle strain. There's a structure and function relationship, right? So not only do we want to make sure that you don't have some sort of tumor or fracture or all the rest of those things, but we're looking for it from a subluxation standpoint. Do you have interference in your nervous system, which is a big problem for you? And when you look at someone's low back, it's the same thing, right? You can look at someone's low back and say, hey, look, if they're bending one way or the other, I know a few things that's going on. I know that their brain most likely is out of balance, because if the brain is out of balance, then you will get muscles that are out of balance. And now all of a sudden you'll have a tight hip. That lady that I talked to today, when she came into the office, we determined that it was her right brain that was a little bit deficient. And then she started telling me how her right hip hurts all the time. When she gets up from sitting in a chair, if she sits in a chair from too long and then she gets up, all of a sudden her right thigh hurts and her right hip hurts, and kind of on the back side of her hip hurts. And the muscles don't function right. And I said, does your left side ever hurt? And she's like, nope, my left side never hurts. It's just always my right side. And for 15 years, I started when I graduated from chiropractic school, I didn't get taught that it could, man, you should start with the brain. You should start looking at the brain first to see if that hip needs what kind of treatment that hip needs. Because what I've done in the past is I've just gone after that hip. I just started doing stuff to try to get that hip to function better, and the hip didn't function better. And I couldn't figure out why. And it was like, well, maybe because it wasn't a hip problem, maybe it was a brain problem, right? And so the other thing is, hey, you got to watch out. If your structure's wrong, you got to be careful about jumping off of out of the back of a truck, or jumping off a porch, or you got to be careful loading your spine. You got to be careful lifting a case of water or a suitcase. You could lift a suitcase in the wrong arm, and if your spine's bent, then you can cause yourself some serious problems. So that structure really needs to try to be as sound if we really want it to be sound, if we want to keep someone functioning properly over a long period of time. So that structure evaluation is a big deal. And then we have a whole component inside the office where we do a nutritional evaluation. And that nutritional evaluation we're a little bit different in our office from a nutritional assessment, because the first thing that we're going to look at in the nutritional assessment is the cervical curve, the curve in your neck. Because what I've learned with working with people is the state of your brain is going to determine what's on your plate or what you're going to eat. If your brain's not happy, if your brain is frustrated, right? If your brain's not working the way it's supposed to, you'll end up with processed foods, high sugar, all that type of thing on your plate. I've done that myself. I've spent a lifetime dealing with that. I finally got it whipped. So we're almost to 19 months since we've had any sugar, 18 and a half months now. And so it took me a long time to get over that. But those are some of the things that you'll start to discover is if your brain's not working right, then you're going to sabotage your food. And so that's what we start with is, how's your brain working? And then we have a heart rate variability in our office. some software to see how your heart's functioning. We have a heart sound recorder to see what's going on inside your heart, to see if it's missing some nutrients. We have an InBody 570 scanner, and that InBody is a body composition, so we can get your weight, we could get your body fat analysis, we could get skeletal muscle mass. We could break all that stuff down for you so that we have a little bit of objective data to say, hey, look, here's where you started, here's where we're going, these are the things that you need to do to improve. And then, of course, one of my favorite ones is the omega-6-3 test, the omega-3 index test that we do from Standard Process. And that tells us the levels of inflammation in your body. And I know that might not mean anything to you, but that's where I've studied it. And I said, look, if you want to get inflammation down, get your omega-6-3 ratio balanced. If you want to protect your brain, get your omega-6-3 ratio balanced. Dr. Bredesen said the same thing. Remember 2 weeks ago when we broke down the End of Alzheimer's book? And if you haven't seen that show, you should go back and watch it because it's really good. But you can go back the End of Alzheimer's book, and he talks about that same thing. We want to make sure that you get that omega-6-3 ratio done, get it under control so that you don't have inflammation in your body and that you protect your mitochondria and that you stay in good shape. And then what do we do about it once we've assessed all this information? Like once we've gathered all this and we've gone through your exam and we've done all of your x-ray markings and we've created all of your notebook for you so that we know exactly what's going on with you, now we just go to work on you. And that's what we're trying to do. It's like, hey, look, it's just like if we were going to learn how to play the piano, or if we were going to learn how to shoot baskets, or if we're going to learn how to hit a baseball, or whatever the thing we were going to do, right? We got to work at it. We got to work at it to be better. We got to get some frequency in it. We got to repeat it. We got to run it again. We got to get some reps. We got to fire the nervous system in a certain way. And in the Rock Health and Wellness Center, we start with the adjustment. We're going to look at how the nervous system is functioning, and then we're going to give you an adjustment, which is going to try to move your vertebrae in a way that allows your nervous system to fire in a proper manner. And I know that's a little confusing because everybody says, why don't you just pop my back and make me feel better, doc? And it's like, well, that is my goal, is to make you feel better, and it's to make you function better. But it's not the same with everybody. If you watch me work all day long, you would think, well, he just does the same thing every time. But it's not really true, because you've got 24 vertebrae in your body. You're in your entire spine from top to bottom, and then you have the way your skull sits on your first vertebrae. That's another joint, and then your sacrum down at the bottom is another whole set of bones that are all fused together, and then you've got your two hip bones that come together called your ilium, and then that's just the bony structure of your nervous system, of your spine and your spinal cord. Then you've got ligaments covering that entire thing. Then you've got muscles on top of that. And there's fascia that wraps all around all that. And then it gets all the way down into your feet, your knees, your hips, your wrist, elbows, and your shoulders. So we're going to start with trying to get your nervous system to function properly. And then we're going to start doing some rehab. We're going to do some cervical tractioning. If you don't have a proper curve, we're going to work on it from a muscle standpoint, from a brain standpoint, and from a physical stretching standpoint to try to restore that cervical curve. And then after your adjustment, you're going to move over into our gym, and we're going to start brain rehab with you. And so we're going to start working on your brain to we've got some things in the office that is going to help you, which is going to help your body function better. And so we have what's called a vibe plate. We're going to have you stand on the vibe plate, and we're going to have you go through a set of exercises on the vibe plate. And that's going to fire your brain in a certain way to try to get your nervous system balanced, to try to remove your subluxations. We've got some laser glasses that you put on. It's got a little laser that comes between the two eyes, and you can look at the laser on a wall, and then we can have you move your head in a certain direction that fires your brain in a certain way, so that we can get your brain to start firing that pattern that it's supposed to, so that we can build that up and to the right and over to the left pathway. We got some motion guidance system. that we have in the office it's got some straps with some lasers as well. And those lasers, now we can put those on your arm. Like if your shoulder's not functioning properly, we can have you hold that laser and we can have you move your arm around. And if you remember on Tuesday night when Dr. Fraley was talking about how the parietal lobe of the brain maps the brain, remember he had that patient that had that anticipatory pain. He had that horrible arm pain, but he didn't have an arm, right? Those are things that we can do to reset those pathways by using the lasers and moving those around. And we've got different images on the wall that we got painted on the wall that like a butterfly and lots of dots, and there's a maze with numbers and all that sort of thing. And so we can use the lasers to help you be better. We got fit lights, got the little lights that they look like little hockey pucks, and they come on in different colors, and so we can set up some movement for you that you have to react to the lights one way or the other. And then we've got an iron neck here in the office. An iron neck is really good for young athletes. If you got a young athlete that is in football or baseball or basketball or cheerleading, that's another one. One of the biggest causes of concussions is the inability to control the head whenever you take a shot. And so if your neck is weak, then and you fall or you take some sort of blow and you can't hold your head still, then you'll get that whiplash type motion going back and forth, and that's going to cause the brain to bounce inside the head and bounce up against the skull, and that's where you get your concussion. So you can use the iron neck as a neck strengthening exercise to help you build those muscles in your neck so that when you do take those blows, you're able to handle them properly. And so those are just some of the things that we do in our gym to help to make sure that your brain is getting rehabbed after you've been adjusted. And then another one of the major things that we have is for all the people that have a really hard time walking, because the number one thing you can do for your brain is be social, right? And I know a lot of you are out tonight being social. That's fantastic. The number two thing you could do for your brain is walk. And so going for a walk is fantastic for your brain. It really, really makes a difference on how your brain functions. And if you have trouble walking, like we've got this, it's called the Ultra G. It's an anti-gravity treadmill. And the Ultra G helps us get people that have balance problems. So if you're an older person and you have balance problems and you're scared to walk, then you can come see us and we'll put you on the Ultra G. And that the whole thing has a big bladder around it, and that bladder blows up with air, and we can take 80% of your body weight off of you. And that now we can get you to move your feet, and now we can start to fire that brain properly by getting on the Ultra G. It's been amazing the results that we've had with the Ultra G. It's really been fantastic. Now you're secure. You're in a secure environment. You don't have to worry about falling. We've got 3 patients right now who are actually in wheelchairs that come to our office in wheelchairs, and we get them on the Ultra G. It's really, really an amazing system that we have. And then when we need to, we can look at the muscle system through a technique called Advanced Muscle Integration Technique, and that's AMIT. And you may have heard of that technique here in town, or because there's lots of us here in town that do AMIT. But that's another one of the things that we do. If the muscles are turned off and they're not functioning the way that they're supposed to function, then we can just step right in with the AMIT. We could test the muscles. We can see if the muscles need to be turned on. If you've had an injury, if you've rolled your ankle. I did that this week with someone who's rolled their ankle, and that ankle's been messing up since they were in high school. And so that they just continually roll their ankle over and over and over again. And so we got in there and got that, got to work on those muscles, got those muscles turned back on. And now that person's working on their rehab on their ankle so that they get their feet working like they're supposed to, because that's the foundation of our stance, right? We want to make sure that that's proper. And that muscle work is kind of it's when those muscles gets overloaded and they just don't function properly. That's what we use AMIT for, is to get them turned back on. So we have come to the end of another show. I really appreciate you guys listening. I know you guys are got lots of things to do. but we appreciate it. We really hope we're helping you. If I can help you at all, give us a call, 806-794-0400, and we'll see if we can help make your life better. And if not, I hope you just keep rocking out there. So that's we've come to the end. If there's any questions for us, please feel free to call us, text us, send us messages on Facebook. I'll try to get back to you. And otherwise, I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys for listening.